I went to a small dinner party and sat next to a gentleman named Paul. He said, I'm in a play this weekend down in the West Village with my friend Murray, and we tell stories. Oh, I said, I'll have to go to that. So I went to the performance of Two Men Talking, and out in the lobby after the play, there was a gentleman standing there saying that you too could learn to tell stories by going to this workshop. So I went to the workshop, and I have seen Two Men Talking 9 times and have been to back-to-back master classes in narrative for the last 3 years. The first classes were held in Murray Nossel's apartment. Murray teaches the class, and the apartment is up on 103rd Street and Riverside Drive. There were 6 of us, and we sat in a circle. And Murray said, we begin by clearing our listening. Each of us tells what is going on that's cluttering our mind and inhibiting our ability to listen to others. And when you tell a story, just tell what happens. Don't mention feelings, interpretations, judgments, or opinions. If a video camera were recording the action of this story, what would it see? If the camera can't see it, don't say it. When I got home that night, I said to my husband, Charlie, these narrative classes are impossible. I mean, how can you tell a story without saying your feelings? I just can't wait till the whole thing is over. A few months later, I'm sitting in the circle in class, and I am clearing my listening, and I start to cry. And Murray says, Susan, just tell us the story of what happened. So I stood up, and I said, I just came from our son Sam's apartment that we got him 6 months ago. And there were piles and piles of pizza boxes, Chinese takeout, Coke bottles, cat litter, cigarette butts, old dirty clothes, everywhere. I went over to the kitchen sink and I got out the hefty black bags and I tossed a few to Sam and I said, Sam, we're gonna clean this up now. So we start piling everything into these bags. And then we walked up and down the 5 flights of stairs to the basement 10 times, and we threw out pounds of trash. And I sat down. When I got home that night, I said, Charlie, I told the story in class tonight about the situation with Sam, and I didn't mention my feelings. And not getting involved in my emotions, I saw things clearly. Murray would pass out pages and pages of notes every week for class. Each week it was a different aspect of storytelling. And like you heard tonight, always about listening. Tonight, he said, you see the white sheets of paper on the floor? I want you to lie down. A partner will draw a map around your body, a mark around your body. And then I want you to take the colored markers and color and put in those markings on you that are unique. There are stories on us and in us. So I drew huge bunions on my feet. The story of running the New York City Marathon twice in my 50s. I drew clogged fallopian tubes. The story of infertility for 7 years and adopting 2 children from Korea, Mary and Sam. I drew crooked teeth. The story of my recent work with the dentist, the expense and the implants, and biting the dentist, and having him run out of the room saying, I want a drink. I drew scribbles all over my head. The story of going to Dr. Shapiro for 9 years. And after about 3 years, he said to me, Susan, I think you should bring in a tape recorder and tape the sessions, because maybe you'll hear me better if you take them home and listen to them. I taped them, I took the tapes home, I listened to it, and what I heard was my voice over and over again saying, why? Murray asked us to bring in 3 objects from home. I brought in this cranberry velvet hat. It belonged to Mrs. Batten, who lived in our building and died at age 92. We would meet at the St. Ambrose coffee shop at the counter, and Mrs. Batten was Italian. She was very small, and she spoke broken English. As we stood together, I said, Mrs. Batten, the fabric of your clothes are so beautiful. And she would just raise her arm and let me feel the silk of her shirt. And then we would sip our cappuccinos very slowly. When she died, her daughter said, Susan, my mother wants you to have this hat. So I wore the hat to the next board meeting at our building, a story of my being president of our co-op for over 20 years. I teach a communication course at a public high school, Manhattan International, seniors. All students are immigrants. And in the fall, we do their personal essays. Bally, who's from Albania, said, I can't tell my story, it's too private. I said, Bally, you know, don't write about your feelings, just write what happened. So for 2 weeks, Bally handed in nothing. And then he gave me his paper. And it was the story of his older brother dying by an accidental hanging. At the time, Bally was 7 years old, and nobody told him or talked to him about what happened to the brother, or ever mentioned that brother's name again. The family moved from Albania to New York City to start over. But Bally did the story in front of the class, and when he was done, he said, Miss Susan, I have my brother back. The other morning, I heard this paper tearing. It was 6:30 in the morning, and it was Charlie. He was tearing out a recipe from the New York Times dining section. Charlie is the cook, and Sam, who lives with us now, and I do the dishes. After dinner, Charlie retires, and we do the dishes, and we take turns scrubbing the pots. Sam says, Mom, we make a good cleanup team, don't we?